The place you grew up shapes you in ways that are hard to measure. The streets you rode your bike on as a kid, the neighbors who watched out for each other, the quiet sense of duty that settles in when the community that raised you asks something of you in return. My guest today is Mike Spadafora, City Councillor for Ward 14 on Hamilton's West Mountain. He was born and raised there. Italian immigrant parents, St. Vincent de Paul, St. Thomas More, a contractor's son who learned early what it means to show up, put the boots on, and take responsibility when things don't go as planned. In 2022, he won his seat by 79 votes, the closest race in the city. What followed was not celebration so much as the weight of it. 4 years of trying to turn that responsibility into roads that get fixed, parks that get renewed, and a standard of accountability that does not always sit comfortably inside the systems of City Hall. This is a conversation about roots, about what family demands of a public servant, about the difference between speaking and listening, and about what it means to still believe a city can make its people proud again. Here is Mike Spadafora. Good afternoon, Mike. Finally, I was I was looking forward to this conversation. Welcome to the Chin Podcast, Mike.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. All right, let's dive right into it, Mike. For a lot of people who don't know much about you, but you are very much known in Hamilton. You're a lifelong West Mountain guy, born and raised in Ward 14 to Italian immigrant parents. You attended St. Vincent de Paul Elementary School and St. Thomas More Catholic Secondary School. So you're an alumni of that school. When you walk through the neighborhood today, Mike, as the councillor, what still feels the same as when you were a kid, and what has changed the most?
Yeah, again, thank you, Daniel, for having me on, and you're bringing me back. St. Vincent de Paul Vikings, that was our school name. So, Ward 14, when I walked down some of those neighborhoods where my friends and families lived, and some still do, that's the part that I still remember when I go down some of those roads in Ward 14 around Green Cedar and Guildwood and all the roads that took us to St. Vincent de Paul, is just seeing some of the people that are still there, that have been living there for, 30, 40 years. And you reminisce on the good old days when we were young. I'm sure some of them were upset with us when we were riding our bikes like crazy through the neighborhood and making a lot of ruckus. So, that the memories that you'll never forget as a kid growing up in the community, and having the neighbors watch each other's back. And yeah, it's been a real privilege to represent the ward that's done so much for me. And yeah, some of the changes, there's some development that's happened in the ward over the last number of years that weren't there when I was growing up. So those are the changes. You've seen some commercial development. Obviously we've seen some residential development. And the ward's busier. That's just, the city's grown since since I was a little kid in the community. So there's definitely more people, there's more vehicles, there's more of everything. So that would be probably the change that I see the most. And obviously some of the people that you remember living in certain houses that don't live there anymore, whether they've moved out or to different parts of the city. But yeah, they're definitely, it brings back a lot of good memories. So.
Yep, and not to put an age to you, Mike, but how much have the population grown in Ward 14 from since you were a kid to today? What do you say?
I don't know the exact number. Ward 14's had some development, or the thing about Ward 14 geographically is we haven't had that massive development. We had some developments, between Rymel and the Hydro Corridor a few years back. We've added a few rental properties, one at Garth and Rymel with the Pinnacle there. So It's grown, but I wouldn't say that it's grown to a part where you don't recognize the ward anymore. All the developments were small infill developments that just complemented the ward, but didn't really change it from what I remember. Yeah, I remember those pieces of property that were maybe just land at the time, just vacant land, or a number of old houses that got torn down for the new development. But the community that I grew up in, it's still there. You know, McNabb High School, my elementary school, St. Thomas More. It's still the same neighborhood to me, just with a couple new buildings or a
Yep.
couple new subdivisions. So
And I believe current population roughly about 30 something thousand
yep,
residents, Mike.
yeah, about 36,000
Mm,
residents in the ward, and that
yep.
change it fluctuates and changes. Um, it's not always up to date. I mean, we still have disagreements on the population of the city of Hamilton.
No,
So
what is the population
yeah,
of city of Hamilton?
I don't know that we can base off the signs we see on the road, right? People say, approximately 600,000.
Yes,
Some say 560. I think some signs say 560, but I go with approximately 600. That seems to be the
the
number most people
ballpark.
are using. Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Yep. No sounds about right.
yeah.
And just for the viewers out there, Ward 14, which is the western portion of the Hamilton Mountain. Boundaries, to be very precise. On the north, we have the Niagara Escarpment. On the south, we have, as Mike mentioned, Hydro Corridor or Hydro 1 Transmission Corridor.
Mhm.
On the east, which is Gott Street. And on the west, it's a bit of City of Hamilton municipal border, extending beyond Scenic Drive into the Ancaster area, reaching Highway 43 and the Lincoln Alexander Parkway. Does that sounds right, Mike?
That is, yeah. The three of the borders are pretty clear and cut. The one border on the west side is a bit. I take part of Old Mohawk Road, which cuts into. There was a realignment, I believe, in 2018, which took some of the old Ward 12 and moved it into Ward 14, like Scenic Woods and
Yes.
Old Mohawk Road. But yeah, that's pretty pretty detailed explanation of the boundaries.
So the old Mohawk Road, Mike, when you're driving towards where the golf links is, and you see all those apartment buildings, and I believe there is a Farm Boy supermarket,
Yep,
that is all in your territory.
that's all mine. Yeah.
Yes. And for again the viewers out there, this Ward 14 comprises of neighborhoods, including areas such as Scenic Woods, Mount View, West Cliff, East and West, Fessenden.
That's it then.
If
Yeah.
Yep, okay, Mike knows it. He knows the people there. Gilbert, Gurnett,
Cornet. Yeah.
Gilkson, Fork, Falkirk, East and West,
Yeah.
and Carpenter. That's
Yes.
okay. All right. I've never really known much of those pockets. So I just know the old Mohawk. If I want to dodge the traffic sometimes on the link, going to the Costco in Ancaster. So Costco Ancaster is that's Ward 12, I believe, right?
Yeah, the entire power center, that's basically the start
Yes.
of Ward 12. Yeah.
All right. So the viewers out there, Mike, many know you, many uh, are getting to know you, and much
Yes.
more will know who Mike Spadafora is after this interview.
After this, yeah.
You are a husband to Joanna, if I pronounce it correctly,
That's correct.
and a father to Ella Rose, Ava, and Michael Jr. You've said family is your greatest inspiration. How does being a father of three young kids shape the way you show up at City Hall and the decisions you make for this community?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. For me, they're probably my greatest accomplishment, my greatest the thing I care about the most in life. And I think when you take that sort of those feelings, that sense of duty as a father, to ensure that your kids, that you do the best job you can to ensure your kids' future is going to be one where they're going to have opportunity, They're going to know to work hard. I think that's sort of what I try to bring to my job every day. I want to make sure that the city's a safe place for my children, and I think I echo that for the children of everybody in Ward 14, the children of all of everybody in the city of Hamilton. So I think when the focus that I have for my kids, I take that every day to work and ensure that that's sort of the mindset and the care that I'm putting into the city for the residents of Ward 14, and again of all the residents in the city. But I mean, you want your kids to grow up in a safe community. You want your kids to work hard. You want your kids to be able to enjoy recreation. Being together in community, enjoying all the amenities that a city has to offer. And I think, when I go to work, I try to think of those things and what would my kids want if they had the ability to, you know, make decisions for what they would want in the city. That's how I try to, you know, take that into work every day.
And you, Mike, have a rec center in Ward 14?
Yes. So McNabb Swimming Pool is a City of Hamilton asset that is in conjunction with McNabb Secondary School. So
Mhm.
we don't own, obviously, the property. The school board does. We don't own the building because that's school board. We have an agreement with the school board. We manage the pool, McNabb Swimming Pool.
Uh-huh.
So that's one of the places our residents in Ward 14 can go and obviously take swimming lessons or just open swim and those sorts of things.
Yep, that's very important because I have heard some wards they lack rec centers, and rec centers are very important to bring community together,
hmm
and
Yeah, I
especially
think
for the young kids.
absolutely. I think recreation centers are important. I think we need to be able to give kids the opportunity to, do as much as they can outside of technology. I think technology now, kids and adults, we have our access to those things have become very easy. Whether it's an iPad, a computer, a cell phone, and I think what's sort of lacked in some areas, not all, is the ability for kids to access recreational programming. So for me in Ward 14 at McNabb, we have the swimming pool at outside of the swimming pool outside, we have the tennis courts. I actually just moved the motion to um, redo the entire tennis court area, to introduce more pickleball, two basketball nets, two basketball courts, and then two tennis courts. So the area was at end of life. So I used some of my budget within Ward 14 to redo that. So that project's going to take on next year. I believe the construction will start. So again, giving access to kids to be able to just be outside, hang out with their friends, and enjoy those amenities. And then we have a lot of seniors in Ward 14. Pickleball's taken off, not just for seniors, but just for people in general. A lot of adult community are liking the pickleball, the tennis. So I think, it's important for them to be able to continue to be active. And with, Shea Alexander that went to McNabb and is the MVP of the NBA, I think it makes sense to have a couple basketball courts as well for our kids to hopefully one day dream to be like Shea and play in the NBA.
Yes, I read that, and he had some investment in the TD Coliseum or something like that.
Yeah, I've heard that. I don't know exactly what
Yep.
his investment will be, but I did hear that he's somehow involved in that, which is great. I think he's a wonderful individual. I've had the opportunity to meet him a couple times, and he still cares about the city, and I think that's important.
Yes, he's doing something very positive to uplift Hamilton because we certainly need it in
Absolutely.
these times. And
hmm
Mike, going back, what's one moment at home that has reminded you why this work matters to you?
That's a good question. I don't know that I have a specific moment that that resonates with me at home. That then I think it goes back to the fact that I was given an opportunity to be able to make change for the better. And I think every day I wake up and, my kids and my wife, that's what I want to do. I try to wake up and make their life better. And whether that's just for me being, a better person, whether that's for me making sure I'm working hard and contributing, and giving them the opportunities that they're looking for, and giving them the opportunities to enjoy special moments in their life that, that'll create those family memories. I think that's the same approach I take when I go to City Hall. I want to be able to try to do the best I possibly can to ensure that people in Ward 14 and the entire city have the best opportunity to enjoy their lives to the fullest. And I kind of try and take the same approach. So.
Absolutely, Mike. And for those who are learning about Mike, before politics, he ran a contracting company and later worked in business development at PPG Dulux, if I pronounce it correctly.
Good. Yes.
It is? All right. And what did those years teach you about hard work, customer service, and accountability? All basic in business that you still carry into council.
Yeah, so I was lucky. My father owned his own painting business growing up. Coming over, he was able to find work, did a couple different things, but then was able to find work in the painting industry, started his own company. As I got older and finished schooling, I went to work for him, for a little bit. I used to work for him in the summers when I was off school because he was not going to let me just sit at home and do nothing. So I got to go to work with my dad, and you learn quickly, especially from immigrant parents, the work ethic that they have. I can sit here and tell you that I have the same work ethic. Those individuals that came from other countries and left their family and came over to a different country, that work ethic is hard. It's very difficult to copy. It seemed like they were never tired. It seemed like there was never something that would stand in their way. They always found ways to persevere. So for me, it was interesting finding and watching my dad, who was never tired to go to work and never made excuses. So, and then as I got older and I was able to take on his company and then start my own company, you just learn. You learn that you get up every day, you put the boots on and you go to work. You work hard. You don't look for excuses. You take the bad with the good and you try to find solutions on how to move forward. You make difficult decisions. Those are the things that sort of I learned working with my dad. And then when I had the benefit of going to work for PPG, Dulux, I mean, you get a real good idea of what the corporate world is like. You have to deliver. If you don't deliver, you're probably going to be looking for a new job. There is no room for, I'm sorry I didn't make my numbers this week. I promise I'll make them next week. It's about accountability. It's about, you got to deliver on what it is you're saying you're going to do. You have goals, you need to reach them. And there are no avenues for, well, hey, listen, I'll try better next time. Or I've learned, lessons learned, I think is a term that is new to me. I learned it in this first term of council. I can tell you with my father, there was no such thing as lessons learned. I think, even though things didn't go well, we were able to learn our lesson. At the end of the day, you need to be held accountable. You need to understand what your role is and you need to do your job. I think for me, the work ethic, the accountability, and the no excuses is probably the things that I learned best from working with my dad and then transitioning to PPG and Dulux.
I can certainly see those qualities, Mike. When you're in these council meetings, and accountability is a very big one. And doing what you say you will do, all these very basic things are in business. What I find is those that have a background in business, when they enter city council, they're more commonsensical, right? As I always say, common sense is very uncommon these days. And it seems in some respects, common sense does not prevail in some of these council meetings. But
I, I would agree with you there. I think common sense should be really easy to come by. It seems it's not, and it seems that because it's government, it should be different, or
yes,
it's not as easy. And I think if anybody's been in a business, whether they've worked for a business or own their own, you would understand that you need to value every dollar you spend, or you'd be out of business.
yes,
Um, you need to hold yourself and your employees accountable, because when it costs money in a business, whether it's your business or someone else's, if you make decisions that are going to impact that business negatively, losing money, or losing employees, you're going to be held accountable. If it's your own business, you're going to go out of business if that's the way you
absolutely.
operate. If you're working for another business, like I was with PPG, you're going to lose your job. I mean, no one wants people to lose their job, but that's how business is. You lose your job, maybe not after one mistake, but you would lose your job after one mistake if the mistake was big enough that it constituted you to lose your job. And that's the accountability piece. You can't just tell people you're sorry. I learned my lesson. I'll try and do better next time. Uh, you know, Especially when you're talking about taxpayer dollars. Like they're not your money. Someone gave you that money and they expected you to do good things with it. They expected you to improve their roads or their rec centers or their life in general. And if you don't, well, then you need to be held accountable for that.
Yep, absolutely. And if mismanaged or wasted, they're going to be very unhappy.
As they should. They should be unhappy, because their expectation is that their money is going to be spent wisely. It's going to be spent in a way where they're going to get the most value for their dollar. Um, that's why they pay taxes. They don't pay taxes for us to try and learn new things as we're going through the process. That's not the goal. The goal is, if you got a dollar to pave the road, then pave the road, and make sure their dollar goes as far as it possibly can. So,
Absolutely. And other things, Mike, viewers that may not know about you, and I see this being a bit of a pattern. You, sports, hockey has been a huge part of your life. You were the general manager of Hamilton Huskies, president of the Kilty Bees Junior Hockey Club. They won the conference championship in 2023. Tiger Town Council. So I see, of course, I guess sometimes parents, they end up being hockey coach, volleyball coach, soccer coach in their community. I'm not sure if that's a trend. But what has coaching or leading young athletes taught you about leadership, accountability, and community that politics never could?
yeah, I think sports, team sports, and I'm not taking anything away from individual sports. Those golf players, tennis players, it's just a different type of things that you'll learn from those sports. They're very, I would say, for golfing and tennis, an individual sport, you're talking about, it's mentally difficult. You don't have that support system around. Yeah, you have your coaches and your trainers, but you're on your own, right? So you got to have a lot of self-discipline, and you're mentally tough, right? When you're in that individual sport. I think for me, growing up, I played soccer. I played almost every sport. Even in high school, we try out for every team. That's just the way it was. I try out for basketball and volleyball and soccer and football. Although my parents weren't overly happy about me playing football in high school for a little bit, but when you're playing a team sport, you learn that it's not only on you. You have the support from your team, but you also can't let your team down. So, you think of, you have a goal, a common goal as a group, and you're all working together to achieve the common goal. I think you want to, you want to work hard because you don't want to let the person next to you down. Accountability, talking, and about accountability. If you don't play to your potential, and if you're not playing to a way that's going to benefit your team, your coach is going to hold you accountable, right? So I think it prepares you for real life. I don't know that I would be able to go in and be I would say decent. I'll use the word decent. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm the best politician of all time, but those things help you understand and persevere at council. The other thing it teaches you, when you're running organizations, there's always people that are unhappy with your decisions. There's always people that are going to say things about you that, may not be so nice. So I was prepared for some of the stuff that comes with being a city councilor. When residents are going to send you an email with not so nice things in them, I was able to manage that because I was used to it. I'd been through it before. When you get called out by a resident on things, I'm able to I'll face the music, because that's what sports teaches you. You're gonna have to face someone, whether it's an opponent, whether it's your coach, and whether it's a teammate. Someone is going to confront you about something in sports, obviously about your play, about your lack of commitment, those sorts of things. And the same can be said about a job as a city councilor. So I think I was well prepared for the job. And I think I've done a pretty good job of being able to interact with my residents, providing answers, and taking on some of that accountability piece that came with, my position.
Can you share, Mike, an example of one unhappy resident that expressed their concerns, and how did you respond or turn that negative into a positive, if you were to say?
Yeah, so there's a lot of inquiries, complaints, however you want to call them. And obviously road work is one that I'm sure you hear it's a common theme in our city about the conditions of our roads. So I had one resident reach out that said, hey, I see that there's some construction going on in the neighborhood. This road is getting done. My road's not getting done. My road's in worse condition than that road. And, how do you pick one road versus another? And the one thing for me is I don't shy away from those conversations. I'm not saying the resident was wrong. I'm saying the resident's insight was valid. But for me, I'm not going to shy away from the conversation. I went to see the resident. I said, listen, here's how we do it. I'm new to this too. When I started as a counselor, I didn't know how roads were picked as to which road's going to get done, which road's not going to get done. And this is separate from the capital budget. I'm talking about the money that I would spend as a city councilor to upgrade roads in Ward 14 outside the capital budget. So I know I'm not going to go walk around Ward 14 and decide which road we're going to do. I don't think that's the right way to do it. I'm not an engineer. I don't know what condition, how to decide what condition a road is in. So, our roads are inspected by people through our staffing departments, and they provide lists to us as to which roads are in the worst conditions. And that's basically how I've picked my roads over the 4-year term that I've been here. I've spent close to $6 million out of my own budget to upgrade roads and repave roads in Ward 14. And I go by the list that's provided to me. I don't pick and choose based on one road or the other. And I told the resident that, and I said, this is how we make those decisions. And he was content with the answer. He still wanted his road done sooner. His road is getting done. It was on the next set of roads that were going to be done. So that motion would move the following year. So he was just happy to know. I think with residents, for the most part, they're not always going to be happy, but they want to know. They want the information. I think our office has done a really good job. My office staff has done a good job of responding to residents in a pretty quick turnaround, and we provide that information. And if we don't have it, we go and find it. So, for me, I take the resident complaints head on. I think the best way to come to a conclusion for a resident and the best way to move forward is to have honest conversations. And I don't have an issue having those conversations. So
Very, very well said, Mike. Roads is definitely a very big one. For the viewers out there, Hamilton is making headlines for being the number one worst road, specifically Barton Street.
not the headlines we're looking to make. For
Not
sure.
the headlines. we we should we should. It's been more apparent in 2026, and lots of road construction happening here and there. But the key word, what Mike Spadafora said, is respond. What I have heard is some councillors, but depending on what kind of complaints they receive, but some councillors don't respond immediately. But the key word is respond, responding to these complainants in your respective ward. And so, as Mike mentioned, it is his first term. And so going back 4 years, 2022, Mike, you won the seat in Ward 14 by just 79 votes.
Yes.
The closest race in the entire city. Take us back to that election night. What was going through your mind, and what did that narrow margin teach you about the responsibility you were taking on?
Yeah, it's definitely a night that I don't think I'm going to forget. It was it was an open seat, so obviously different than races that include incumbents. I think there was seven candidates or 8 candidates that ran in that election. And the one thing you always think about, at least for me, is did I do enough? Did I do enough leading up to election night? Because now it's done. There's nothing more you can do. Now you're sitting there and you're waiting for the results to come in. And so one thing I didn't want to do is I didn't want to have a big thing. So I was at home once the polling closed. I was in my backyard with my wife, my kids, and a few of my closest friends. And I can count them on one hand. That's how many friends were over. And we sat around and we watched the results as the results were coming in. And we, it was funny that the friends that were at my home these were the same guys I grew up with that lived in Ward 14 their entire life. Out of those guys, I think only one has moved out of the ward. Like, we were born and raised in that ward, still living in that ward. So it was like a sense for all of us, a sense of duty. Like this was our place. Family, friends, we all lived here. We knew every little pathway. So, it was, as the night went on and the race, as you said, was tight. And then to see at the very end where, the final results were in and I had won by the 79 votes, it was a big weight sort of lifted off the shoulders. But then I think, the joy and the happiness of winning. But I think for me, it was the responsibility now that was going to lie with me for all the residents of Ward 14, for a lot of residents that I've known my entire life. And it was, besides being cool, because winning is fun, winning is cool, the seriousness of what I had just accomplished for me, that was probably what stuck with me. Like, I'm going to be responsible for a piece of this city for 4 years. And it was pretty heavy. Like, again, lift weight off your shoulder because you're in a race and you want to win. But then it was like the heaviness of the role and the responsibility that I was going to get came right back. But I was excited, again, like, to represent a place where you grew up and spent your whole life, the community that shaped you as a person. And now, 45 years later or 41 years later, you become the person that has the ability to help with those discussions and that shaping of the community. It's the greatest privilege that I'll ever earn.
Wow, Mike. That's just hearing that story, it inspires me to run one day, Mike. It's wow. And before you were never a career politician,
No,
Mike.
definitely not.
And yes, and one of the things from the interviews with the other candidates I've done so far, everyone always has that moment or the one issue that finally pushed them to put their name on the ballot. Did you have a moment like that, Mike? If you recalled, what push, or was it something just progressively that transpire that made you want to make a difference in your community?
Yeah, I don't think there was one issue in the city that caught me um and made me want to do it. I think for me it was more about the conversations I was having with friends, with family, with people in the community, and sort of with the temperature of politics at the time and where we were headed or where some people wanted to go. And as I was having those conversations and people were like, listen, like, why don't you run for council? Like, I think you would be great. I think we need someone that is going to bring a business mind to City Hall. We need someone that's going to stand up for just the everyday people that don't have a voice. Like you could be that guy. So that's sort of how it all came together. There wasn't like, oh, I'm disappointed about this, so I'm going to run and try to make a difference on that at City Hall. For me, it was um, protecting the community, and continuing to, try to move the city forward. And I think I accomplished that from a Ward 14 perspective. I would say that from a citywide perspective, I don't think we accomplished that as a council. Again, I'm, from a citywide perspective, a little bit harder as an individual councillor because you have your one vote and, you know, you have less control of those votes citywide. But where I had control in Ward 14 on budgetary items that I could spend and had the discretion to do that, I think we were able to definitely have some wins in Ward 14. But for sure, not one specific thing. I have a lot of things now as to why I'm running again. So now the approach is definitely different than it was 4 years ago.
Yes, and given that, Mike, it is your first term. Looking back at the first year or year and a half, 12 to 18 months, what surprised you most about City Hall? How City Hall actually works versus how you thought it would work from the outside. So now you're on the inside, but what did you think when you were on the outside? How it
Yeah,
works?
some days I wish I was still on the outside, but yeah. So
Ah,
I mean, if anyone noticed, I was a pretty quiet person for the first 2 years of my term as counselor. And I think for me, one of the things I tried to do when I started the job was I didn't know anything. Like you said, I didn't know what was behind the curtains. I didn't know how City Hall worked. I didn't want to go in there with this notion like, oh, I know what we have to do. Right. So for me, it was more about I wanted to um I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn about how things work. I wanted to listen to things I was going to hear from residents. I wanted to get to know staff. I wanted to get to know some of my other counselors. And the best way to do that was to listen. So I would listen at council meetings. I would listen at committee meetings. I would listen to staff during their presentations. And then you'll probably notice that 2 years in, you've seen a shift where I was a little more vocal. I started speaking a bit more at council because I finally found the comfort and the knowledge that I think now was time for me to start speaking up on the things that I had learned and why I probably just didn't agree with many of those things that were being talked about. The biggest thing that I figured out quickly was how slow things move at City Hall. So I in the private world, you have to move quickly. Everything is, um, fast. PPG, everything is fast. Everything is, you have to, you're responsible for something. They want it done quickly and correctly. So for me, I had to learn that at City Hall, things are slower. Everything gets done slower. I don't agree with it. I don't think it needs to be that way. I understand why it wouldn't be as fast as the private sector, but it doesn't need to be as slow and complicated and convoluted as it is at City Hall now. So for me, the biggest thing that I learned once I got to see behind the curtains is things are just really slow, and we tend to want to overcomplicate things. We tend to want report over report after report. And what that does is it just slows process down, and we don't get things done. We don't get them done quickly, efficiently. And unfortunately for taxpayers, their taxes continue to rise, and the production of their tax dollars continues to be in question. So, yeah.
Is there, because I've heard this before, there are many inefficiencies at City Hall, Mike. You mentioned things move slow. The question would be, could it move faster?
I think the answer would differ based on who's sitting in front of you. You're asking me the question, I would say 100% things could be done faster. And I don't mean faster so that we don't keep checks and balances. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying I don't know that we've done a good job procuring. I think our procurement process needs to be revamped. I think it needs to catch up with the times that we're in now. I think COVID spiked inflation and the cost of just construction in general to heights that were so much greater than prior to. And I don't know that our procurement is kept up with that. So some of our minimums are too low. I think I don't think it's efficient to hold up projects for the amount of time we hold them up. And whether that's, as some people say, we don't have the capacity to do it. And when I hear that word capacity, the first thing I think of is people want more employees. We want more employees. We want more employees. Well, I think we also need to look at having the right employees. And I think when we've added almost 1,000 employees, Daniel, over the last 4 years. Now,
Correct.
some of those are paramedics and police officers and firefighters and people in our long-term care. And that's great. I think those are important positions. Those are not positions we want to look at as places where we want to slow down the increase there. I think that those places warrant that. But when you add the amount of bureaucracy that we've added to the city, that also slows things down. Now you have more people asking for more things. And I don't know that the things that we're doing are making us more efficient, are making us, deliver better on projects. They're not. I know they're not, because there's projects that aren't being delivered on. There's projects that are taking way too long. So, we need a council and staff that are prepared to deliver. We said, a lot of the people around the table talked about historic investments in our city. And that's where their taxpayer dollars were going, and that's where the reserve spending was going. Well, I don't know, look around. Really? What are we investing in? What do residents truly feel that they've received over the last 4 years? And listen, I've been there, Daniel. So yeah, it sounds like, well, Mike, what do you mean? You're sitting there. Yeah, I am sitting there. Budgets were things that I never agreed with. I didn't vote in favor of one budget these 4 years because I didn't believe we were going to give residents anything nearly close to what they were going to feel on their taxes.
23% increase in taxes accumulatively.
Yeah, 23% in taxes. And the biggest increase that we made was adding people.
Yep.
Now, if you sat there and said, well, hey, listen, we raised your taxes 23%, but your roads, look at the roads. Every road is beautiful. We've added 2 new rec centers. We've added this rec center. We've added to this. We've added a new library. The problem is we said we weren't going to invest. We spent so much money and we didn't deliver. So for me, some of the reasons why I voted against those budgets, and you can watch a lot of the things that I posted on, was number one, some of the money we spent was not ours to spend. We spent money in areas that were not our responsibility. I'm not saying we couldn't have spent some money, but we spent hundreds of millions of dollars on files that are not our responsibility. It's not the residents' responsibility to use their money in those areas. And I think some of that investment is the reason why you didn't see some of the everyday stuff that municipal politics are about: roads, sidewalks, parks, rec centers. That's what we do. When I took this on, that was my focus. It was something I campaigned on, and it's something that I did. And I think we got away from that, right? We took approach to our budget less about the needs and more about the wants. And I think we need to refocus our budget. I don't think we can have 23% increases and spend $200+ million in reserves over 4 years and deliver what we delivered. So, we need to totally revamp the budget process. We need to get back to a system where the taxpayers are getting what they deserve. And I don't believe they receive that. And I think, if we can lower their taxes, get back to the basics, give them better roads, better parks, better sidewalks, more accessibility to the programs they're looking at, and saving the money on their taxes, that's what people want. That's what people say to me. That's what they want. And we got to do a better job of that, for sure.
Yep, I read the same thing, Mike, in the newspaper, on the comments, or even in social media. Better roads, better parks, right? Lower taxes, and to have better fiscal spending in this city.
That's a big one. The fiscal accountability, the fiscal discipline that we need after the 4 years we just had. And again, I'll keep repeating it. I voted against these tax increases every year because, number one, they weren't affordable. The majority of Hamilton residents could not afford what we were giving them, and it was just going to burden their household more than their household is already burdened with everything else that's going on. We had an opportunity to not compound the issues people were having in their homes for whatever reason. Our economy wasn't great. The taxes they already pay federally, the price of groceries, the price of housing. We had the opportunity as a municipality to just be responsible, and we didn't need to do what we did. We didn't need the 23% increases. We didn't need to do it all at once. Why? We can't even deliver, on the things we taxed for. We can't deliver. We still have projects that we were unable to deliver. We taxed for them. We took the money, and they're capital projects that we can't deliver. So, we put the burden on the taxpayer based on, we're going to deliver this, and we couldn't deliver it. And I asked those questions. Why do we continually ask for more money when we can't deliver on those capital projects? I think we're still working on 2025 projects. I think we have all of 2026 projects that we've taxed for on the capital side.
Yep.
When are we delivering those? Are we going to ask for that money again in 2027? Right? Because it's all tied to each other. If you can't procure the projects, and you can't get the project tendered, and you can't get the contractor to get onto the project, well, what are we taxing for a project in 2027 when we're still trying to finish projects from 2025? Right? We're burdening the public and the taxpayers and not providing anything. Of course, they're going to be frustrated. They wouldn't be frustrated if they seen a delivery, right? Oh, okay, you taxed me this much. Here's everything I received for those taxes. You might not get some pushback, but we didn't do that. That's not what happened. That was what we were trying to sell, or I shouldn't say we, because I wasn't trying to sell that. That's what this council was trying to sell when they approved those budgets, that we're investing and we're giving you all the things that you want. I don't know. You talk to residents, Daniel. You tell me if they got everything they wanted.
Oh
I
no,
don't
the
think
answer
so.
is no. They're very, very frustrated. I've never seen so many Hamiltonians frustrated,
Yeah.
and it's all always on the news.
Yeah.
And I believe in the past few years, or a few years ago, strong mayor powers,
Hmm.
where the current mayor has that power to set the budget. And I believe is it 2025 or 2026 budget where you made a motion, Mike, and it was ignored.
I made a
There
lot of
was
motions, Daniel,
or,
unfortunately.
or there was a lot of motions, more so in the past 2 years,
Yes.
as Mike became more vocal. All right, let's take it a step back, Mike. In
Yeah.
your Ward 14, you have been very focused on visible neighborhood level results, multiple park redevelopments, and new play equipment across Ward 14. Walk us through one or two of those projects. Why did they matter so much to you? And what did you hear from families once they were done?
Yeah, great question. And probably some of the proudest and happiest days for me over the 4 years are when I was able to work inside the community and do things inside Ward 14. That's where I felt like the job had its best, the best days. So the one thing I did when I got in, because I ran on this in 2022, was my plan to upgrade and invest in parks and invest in community. So early on, I went to our staff and I said, "Do you guys have a list of every park in Ward 14 and what condition it's in?" Similar to the road example I gave you earlier. So I went to staff. Staff provided a list of every park and the condition that those parks were in. And right away, I moved the motion. I took the number one park that was end of life and should have been replaced years ago, and I moved the motion at Public Works to redevelop Scenic Woods Park, Scenic Parkette. Got those on the docket at Public Works as soon as possible. Funded it through my Ward 14 area rating money, and started that process. And I did that every year. Every year, as soon as I received my funding for my area rating funds, I that's where I went to first. I'd go to Public Works early on in the year. I'd move a motion, and like I said, I would get parks done. So I know we've done Scenic Parkette, Scenic Woods, Carpenter Park is getting updated. We did pathways at Gilkson Park. The tennis courts at McNabb are getting redone. I've spent probably close to $2 million on park redevelopment, and I would have spent more, but obviously, understandably, our staff, they're redeveloping parks across the entire city. So, they want to make sure they're giving every ward, their fair share of time. So every ward can get park redevelopment underway. So I ask them as much capacity as they have, I give them that much work. I've always maxed out their workload that they can do for Ward 14 every year that I've been a counselor. And the same thing goes for roads. I did the exact same thing in roads. I moved motions every year. I asked staff how much capacity do you have for roads? They give me that. And as I give them that much work tied to capacity and the finances that I have in my Ward 14 budget. Sidewalks was another one that they have their yearly plan for sidewalks, but I always ask them, if I give you some more money, how many more sidewalks can you do? And I always make sure they have that money. So all the things I said I wanted to invest in when I ran in 2022, I was committed to that. And I thank staff for being able to help me deliver on all those parks, roads, and sidewalks.
Wow, Mike, if all the councillors in their wards where roads and parks is very lacking, and they have taken that same approach, Mike, then we would have no road concerns in the city of Hamilton.
Yeah, I
But
can't talk to what the other wards are doing. I just
yep,
know for me, that's what my residents want. Those are the
absolutely.
complaints I hear, and that those are that's what I'm going to deliver on. Obviously, property taxes is the number one complaint that I hear.
Yes.
But anytime a resident emails me about a park, about a piece of sidewalk, a road, my staff, we get back to them right away. We transfer their concern to the right department within the city, and we try and get it done as quickly as possible. Obviously, it's probably never done as quickly as we want it done, but we try our best for sure to get it done and follow up. And I think we've done a good job delivering over the last 4 years on that.
Yep. And what are you hearing from the families today? They love the parks. They enjoy the parks. They appreciate the parks. Mike?
Absolutely. The feedback, obviously, from the areas where we've upgraded parks, it's all positive. I see it when I drive by. When I'm driving by Scenic Parkette, when I'm driving by Scenic Woods Park, when you see the park full and busy with young families, and you see how happy they are. And for me, also just seeing them out and being active. I know I try that with my own kids. I get outside, get off TV, stop watch, they just want to get stuck to the technology. And for me, it's go outside and go play outside and enjoy the sunshine, enjoy the weather, and just enjoy that company with the other people within the community. So, yeah, it's been positive for sure, the feedback. The only negative is, those parks that haven't been redeveloped in different parts of my neighborhood, those parents are like, hey, when are you going to do our park? So my goal is, when I get reelected, we're going to continue updating parks and roads. That's definitely not going to change in the next term of council.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, it's all music to my ears, Mike. Parks and roads, and there are
Yeah.
two other priorities, for the West Mountain: traffic safety and complete streets. Well, if you have touched on it already or not, what specific changes have you pushed for, and what still needs to be finished for the next 4 years? Traffic safety and complete streets.
Yeah, so I think we were able to accomplish a few things. Obviously, not as quick as we wanted. Upper Paradise, we had that tragic death of the student on Upper Paradise on the way home from school, and we did a traffic study and a safety audit on the road. The first thing that came to my mind is we got to do something. We got to do it now, and that's just not. That's what people wanted. That's what I wanted. And that's the emotional response. It's the right emotional response. But, when you start talking to people that do this, for a living, they'll tell you, like, we're going to go through a process of doing a safety audit. We're going to do a process of, we're going to look at it from an engineering standpoint, and we're going to look at short, medium, and long-term changes to the road to make it safer. And that's what we did. And one of the quick turnarounds that we're able to do was in where the tragic accident happened. We've installed pedestrian signal. So now when you want to cross the road at that point, there's an IPS or a PXO pedestrian crossing where you can push the button and it'll change the stoplight to red and allow for students, seniors, and just people within the community to cross that road safely. Upper Paradise, the grading of the road is not ideal. There's a bit of a hill, so you can't see when you're coming up. And obviously, as you're coming over that hill and you start going, to get to the top and start heading down, it's not the best way to navigate the road. And if you're speeding or traveling too fast, it could cause obviously an accident, and in this case, a tragic one with some dangerous driving that was happening along the roadway. So, we were able to install that. I installed another pedestrian crossing on Stone Church and Stone Church, and I can't remember the other crossroad. But again, an area where residents were complaining about safety, trying to get their kids across the street. There's a crossing guard there, but still, even with the crossing guard, some of the driving, that behavior that was happening was a concern. So, I heard from residents that they had been asking for this traffic signal or this pedestrian crossing for years. So I reminded them, I just, I'm a new councillor. I've only been here for this term, so I will I'll go to staff, I'll fund it, and I'll get it done. And I used again my area rating wards money for both of those projects. So, those are bigger projects. They're more expensive. They take a little bit longer because you got to get hydro there and do all the reconstruction of that area. But those are two really successful things that happened in the ward that are making it safer. We've added, obviously, speed bumps. Not every resident loves speed bumps, but, it's hard when you're trying to find ways to get people to drive more responsibly within the neighborhood, to make sure that, I want children to be able to play outside and recreate outside, but parents have concerns of doing that because of some of the driver behavior that happens in our neighborhoods, right? And so, adding speed cushions or any sort of traffic calming measures that we've been able to do with our traffic department, we've tried to do that. And I think we've done some good things. We've made it safer, but there's always going to be more work to be done to ensure that people can enjoy their neighborhoods and feel safe when they're out on their sidewalk or on their front lawn or their children are playing or going to the parks. I think still got work to do, but I'm happy with the work we've done so far.
Yep. And and what percent of the population in Ward 14 is families, Mike? Do you know?
I don't know that
Versus seniors. Oh,
Yeah, I don't have the percentage for you right now, but I definitely have an aging population. We have a lot of seniors. I think we have a good mix. We have a good mix of people that have lived in the ward for a long time. So obviously their kids may have moved out of the ward, so they, they're into their later part of their life and becoming seniors. We have a lot of new Canadians that have moved into the ward. We also have new families that have moved from other wards, and so it's a good mix. And I think for the most part, all those groups of people, seniors, new families, new Canadians, they all want the same thing. They all want to be able to walk down the sidewalk and feel safe. They want to go to parks that are accessible, that their kids can use. They want to enjoy the green space, the walking trails. So I think the good thing is it benefits everyone in different ways. And that's my goal as their counselor, to just try to make sure everyone can utilize all the amenities in the ward, no matter what part of their life they're in.
yeah, absolutely, Mike. Residents, they all want the basics done well. Roads, sidewalks, parks, safety. And, a part two question will be, how do you measure whether tax dollars are actually delivering those basics in Ward 14?
Yeah, so from a delivery standpoint, from the taxes, I think there's always room for improvement. I think when we talked about, snow removal is an area where we get, I hear a lot of communication and comments from my residents. I think we can look at, and I moved the motion to look at some different things when it comes to snow removal. Can we get rid of the windrows, as they call them? That's when the snow gets pushed up in front of your driveway, and it's because the plows come by. And for my senior population, it's hard for them to then move that snow. It's hard for them to leave their home for medical appointments. So, there's been some municipalities that have been able to find machinery that allows them to at least not have that happen in front of driveways. So I think we need to be innovative with different things. And I think the hard part is when you're charging the amount of taxes that you're charging, and you're spending the amount of reserve money that you're spending, and you're not seeing an upgrade in their service, or at least a maintaining of the service. That's where the frustration comes in. I'm a resident of the city. I have the same frustrations. It's not like I'm sitting here saying, well, no, my street's great. Everything's fine here. I feel those frustrations. I hear them. I agree with the frustrations. And I think for me, when you're looking at a budget, if let's, instead of hiring hundreds of people, like I think we hired more people in our first year of budget than the entire previous term of council.
Yes.
Are we hiring people that are fixing potholes? Are we hiring snow removal operators? Are we hiring waste collector positions? Are we hiring the people that are cutting grasses in the parks where our kids are going to play, or are, some of our organizations provide soccer and baseball. So, we're going to parks and the grass is not, that's where the employment increase should have been. We don't need more managers and directors and people that work in offices. We don't need that. We need the on the street. Those are the people that I will agree to hire. You want to hire somebody? Hire someone that's going to make our roads better. Hire someone that's going to fix a sidewalk. Hire someone that's going to cut the grass in the park so that when kids show up to play a soccer game, it's not, a foot tall, or it's been cut and it was so long that now, there's all the grass clippings and they can't even play their game, or it's hard for them to play it. That's where the focus of our hiring should have been, not more bureaucrats to make it harder to get things done and longer to get things done. So you want to sell me on hiring people? Let's hire the people that make things better for the residents. And those are the people on the front line. Those are not the people that sit at City Hall in the office. Do we need those people? Yes. We don't need more of them. We need to be more efficient, and we need to add the people at the front line. That's where we need to hire them, because that's where the taxpayers will start seeing their dollars at work. They'll actually see a delivery on their money, because the potholes fixed, the cracked sidewalks fixed, and the grass is clean, and the garbages are emptied at the bus, at the bus stops and in the parks. That's what residents want to see. They want to see their taxpayer dollars working, and that's how they see them working. So,
Wow. Mike, as I'm listening, you really understand what is going on in this city. And all of those things that you mentioned, those are actually real concerns, real issues that real residents do have in this city. I read it in the comments. I read it in the news or the opinions or op-eds, right, in the Hamilton Spectator and other news, media as well. It is real, Mike. Wow. And that was a good summation of all that is happening, even though if it is just in your Ward 14, but it is applicable citywide as well.
absolutely.
Now, for the viewers out there, this is Mike first term, and we all want him to have a second term, because Mike is listening to Mike. He's doing great and knows a lot about what's happening in the city. And Mike, you mentioned first 2 years you were mostly listening, learning, and of course following through on the things you said you was going to do as well. And more so in the latter half of your term, if you were to say, you have been one of the stronger voices on fiscal discipline. You successfully moved hiring freeze and staffing review. I believe, was it in the first year where you made that motion, or you said that more staff was hired in your first year, what you have seen, more than the previous 4 years? And
yeah,
yes,
so that was in the first year, where we hired more people
Yep.
than for last term of council, all 4 years combined.
Yep. And why did you feel that was necessary, and what did the review actually reveal? Just to give more insight, not to repeat some of the things you said, but to give more insight. What did that review reveal? Because most of, from what the residents are saying, we hire so many people. What are they really doing?
And that's a good question. I think again, it goes back to my earlier comment about wants and needs. And I think the one thing that you will see in this budget, or the budgets over the 4 years, were there was a lot of wants that were put in, in those budgets, as opposed to just needs. I think that change alone would have reduced budgets, right? If we just focused on the basic needs of the taxpayer, that alone would have reduced the tax increases every year. I think, for me, when I started seeing how many people we were hiring and the cost associated with, those employees, it's not just, well, yeah, they make X amount of dollars a year. Yes, there's benefits and there's pensions that also get tied to that. So the actual cost of those employees is much higher than what someone thinks. Well, I make $70,000 a year. Yeah, you make $70,000 a year, but the cost to the corporation is higher, obviously, when you factor in the pension and the benefits. What I was trying to do with the hiring freeze motion was just to slow everything down. We had hired all these people. We brought on large amounts of staff, which means large expenses. We were using reserves to cover the budget. So in turn, using reserves to hire some of these people, we were using the reserves to bring that property tax increase down. But that's a 1-year solution. So now next year, we need to find whatever that reserve spend was to keep paying for those positions. So it's not like, well, we paid for them through the reserves. We don't need to worry about anymore. That's a 1-year fix. So now the reserve, our savings account is coming down. Now we got to find somewhere else to pay for these people. Well, the only place that we can find money is property taxes. So the property taxes continue to go up and we haven't delivered. Again, going back to, we don't need all these employees. We don't need them. In an economy where people are reducing their workforce, right? Everybody else is reducing their workforce. No one's growing their workforce, right? The only places that were growing their workforce was the public sector. Well, why is that? Well, who are their shareholders? The taxpayers? Well, the taxpayers put us in a position to ensure that we were taking care of their money. And I don't think that happened through these budgets. We hired people that, instead of showing constraint, instead of showing that because there's an affordability crisis issue, I don't want everything's a crisis nowadays. Everybody wants to use that word. We had an affordability issue in our city. Everybody says, well, we had an affordability issue across the country. Great. I care about Hamilton. That's my focus. My job is to care about Hamilton. So just because it's happening somewhere else, or, that doesn't mean it's okay. We had an affordability issue and we did nothing to help it. Nothing. Instead, we said, well, we're going to invest. We're investing in our communities. We're not investing in our communities. We had an affordability issue, and instead of trying to manage our taxes as best we could and minimize the amount of people we hired and tried to keep as much money in the taxpayer's household as possible, we did the complete opposite. That's what those budgets did. They did the complete opposite, and it delivered minimal outcomes. I don't know what the outcomes are. I can't tell you what they are because I don't think there are any. The most measurable outcomes in Ward 14 were delivered through my area rating funding. They were not delivered through our global budget. Other people will disagree with me, and that's fine. I disagree with them at council. I'll disagree with them again. We did not deliver for the greater city. The majority of the stuff in my ward was Ward 14 driven and Ward 14 funded. We funded more people to come to work. And we didn't. I also moved the motion to get people to come back to work. That was also something that, was not able to get done. So for me, the hiring freeze, I can't believe it wasn't something that we looked at. And even my hiring freeze, Daniel, excluded emergency services. So I wasn't saying not to hire people in the 2 long-term care homes that the city owns. That wasn't what I was saying. I wasn't saying not to hire any more paramedics. I wasn't saying not to hire any more police officers or firefighters. Those are the things that our residents want us to invest in. So let's continue doing that. But our people, we don't need to have 8,000 employees to be able to run the city. You had 1,000 employees in 4 years. Well, then we should be able to deliver capital projects at lightning speed. Did we do that? I'm going to say no. Did we build rec centers in Winona and Binbrook where they've been waiting for rec centers? I don't see them. So what have we done? TD Coliseum, that wasn't our money. That was private investment. So the airport, not our money. We lease it to a private company to do their job. So we hired all these people And I don't know that we delivered on, I guess, whatever they were hired to do. And I'm not saying it's the people's fault. I'm not saying that I'm not putting personal blame on the staff that we hired. I don't think we needed to hire any more staff. We needed to do more with what we had, because that's what businesses do. That's what your household does, Daniel. When you need to tighten the straps at home because money's tight, you don't
Yep.
go out. You don't spend money at a restaurant. You don't buy new clothes. You don't buy a new car. You constrain your spending. We did the complete
Absolutely.
opposite.
Wow.
That's how I see it, right? We did the complete opposite. We just spent money. We used our reserves so that our taxes seemed lower than they actually were. And we still had high increase. We were still averaging 6% a year, but that's after we spent $200+ million in reserves. So I completely agree with the frustration of the residents. And, I tried my best to bring some fiscal restraint to the city through my motions, and there's a ton of them on the financial side, and I'll continue to do that when I get hopefully reelected in October. I'm not going to stop fighting for that financial restraint. The only thing for everybody else is I'm going to be doing it for 4 years. I'm not going to take 2 years to find my way and learn and listen and make sure that I'm saying things that are right. I'm going to start from the first day I'm elected to try to get this city back on a financial path that we can actually believe it. On the pace we're going, we're going to bankrupt our residents and our city.
No, you nailed it right on the head, Mike. Exactly. All the words that you said is exactly how all of the residents in Hamilton, how they are seeing it, and what they have seen in the past 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And with the 23% tax increase, things becoming more unaffordable. There was on budget committee meeting January 19, 2026. There was a delegate named Michelle Hamilton. Very, very great speech she did. And one of the lines she said is homeowners are being priced out of their own homes. They can't afford anymore, right? And her taxes, jumped out like $1,700 annually. And she's a single mom with 2 kids. And that's a reality. What's happening here in Hamilton.
We had the opportunity, though, Daniel, to try and help moms like Michelle. If we showed some financial restraint and some financial discipline, we could have helped families like Michelle. Instead, we chose to do the opposite, and we blame the federal and provincial government. I'm not saying the federal and provincial government need to do a better job. I'm not saying that they underfund. They do. They do need to do a better job. They do need to provide the proper funding in the files that are their responsibility. But it was our choice as a council to spend the money we spent. And for me, that was the reason I voted against it. Not because it wasn't important, but it's because we did not have the capacity to spend the money that we spent. And we've asked taxpayers now to pay. We're asking them for something that is not realistic for years to come. It's just not.
Yep, and the consequences, the outcome which we have today, Mike, very unfortunate as well, because these policies does impact everyone, families, individuals, all residents citywide. And Mike, there's another one where you have been a constant critic of the vacant unit tax. And I believe a few months ago, I saw a public short video clip where you exposed it's 8.3 million gross, which was reported. But actually it was net 5 million that was actually received. Sorry, what? No, net will be about 3 million.
Yeah. So what happened was the report came forward, and I think in the title or something like that, it talked about $8.3 million being transferred to the Hamilton Housing Stability Reserve or something. I can't remember the exact wording. So what ended up happening was the 8.3 never got transferred. And I asked that question in the meeting to the GM, and I said, did we transfer the $8.3 million? Well, no, we didn't. Oh, well, why not? The 8.3 was the gross number. That didn't include any of the expenses that we were spending on that number. So all I wanted to know was the net number. There is a net number. The net number was a couple $1,000,000. But I don't believe we should be putting out information to make people think that a program is doing better than it is. If the program's doing a great job, that's great. The numbers still need to be accurate. It's got nothing to do with whether we voted in favor or against the vacant unit tax. Everybody knows I voted against the vacant unit tax. But if we're going to report things, they need to be the actuals. You can't try to sell residents that this was a good idea and everybody who voted against it was bad because we just put $8 million in a bank account when really all you put in it was $3 million. That $5 million is a big difference. And residents need to know that. So that was my concern with that. I think there's still a lot to be seen on the vacant unit tax. There's still a lot of people that are appealing their vacant unit tax. So I think some of the income that's being put out there or recorded is not complete yet. And I also think now that we took on our own utility company, why do we need to bother every single resident to fill out a declaration every year? We know if we're the ones billing for water, we've taken that on now as a city. We should be able to tell when a home has zero water consumption. Go and check it out. Instead of making 180,000 households fill out a declaration every year, and then the 90-year-old lady in my ward forgets to do it, and they take money out of her bank account. And now she's calling me saying, they took $4,000 out of my bank account or whatever the number is. And how do I get it back? Well, we got to go through this process. There's a better way to do things. The process on the vacant unit tax needs to change and needs to be better. Every year we're gonna have the vote on the bylaw, and whatever happens to it, happens to it. But while we have it, we need to administer it in a way that is done properly and doesn't affect residents that forget to submit a piece of paper. Like, that's just not the way we should be. We shouldn't be penalizing our own residents, the people that pay for us to even be down at City Hall, because they forget to put a piece of paperwork in. So that's my take on the vacant unit tax.
Mike, are you aware of a program? It was a federal program called the Underused Housing Tax, 1%. And it was for about 3 years, and then they scrapped it. It was a failed public policy. It's very similar to the vacant unit tax. Are you familiar with it, Mike?
I'm not familiar with the federal program, no.
Yep.
But they shut it down after 3 years?
3 years after hiring, a few hundred, 50 something million spent. And it wasn't as effective as they anticipated. And it was like a net loss. And then they scrapped it 3 years later.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping for the city we don't have the same outcome, because I mean that just means that our taxpayers, we've wasted that money. So I'm, for our sake, I hope that's not the case. But do I think it could end up going that way? I think we might have the same sort of ending to the vacant unit tax. But I think there's some councillors that we're going to try and make it better while it's there, at least in the meantime, so that people aren't getting taken advantage of accidentally through the process. And then hopefully one day, if it gets to a point where it's not doing what everybody's saying it's doing, making all these millions of dollars, then hopefully we'll have a council that's able to get rid of it.
Absolutely. And on the subject of homelessness and emergency shelters, you seconded a successful motion prioritizing access for local residents. You also talk often about the limits of what a municipality can and should find. Where do you draw the line between compassion and fiscal responsibility?
Yeah, that's a good question, Daniel. It's a pretty difficult one too,
Yes.
right? Because the homelessness file is not something that you can fix in one swipe of something or a motion. This is it's a multi-leveled approach. Obviously, you need federal and provincial funding. You need your agencies to be doing a good job. The municipality definitely needs to be on board. So everybody's got to be at the table. I think where things went astray for me on this file is when I look at the money we're spending. I think this year we're spending about $150 million or somewhere around that. The province and the feds, I think they give us $60 million combined. So we're spending double the amount of money that the provincial and federal government are spending. Obviously not something we can continue doing. We're going to run out of money. We're going to end up bankrupting the city, and then the province will have to take us over at the rate we're going. The other issue we have is I don't know that we're getting the outcomes that we're expecting with the money that we're spending. So we have a lot of agencies that we fund, and I think that we need to start seeing the real data on where our money goes and what deliverables we're receiving. So we want to get people into supportive housing. We want to get people off the street. So when these agencies are saying, we can do that, we need to hold them accountable, just like everybody else, to ensure that that is what's happening, that they're getting people into their agency, they're providing what they need in the short term, and transitioning those individuals to transitional and supportive housing. We cannot continue to just keep funding shelters and having these people stay in shelters and stay in shelters. It's not going to work. The other part is our neighboring municipalities, they don't have the infrastructure we have in regards to social services. They don't have the shelter capacity we have. They're not spending the money we're spending. And that's a problem because people who need those services, they know they can access them in Hamilton. So I know that people don't like talking about, well, you say people come to Hamilton. Well, they do come to Hamilton. They're coming to Hamilton because we provide services and we have capacity that other municipalities don't have. So if one municipality next to us has one shelter, and I'm just using round numbers, if we have 10 shelters and they have one, well, where do you think people are going to go that need shelter once their one shelter's full?
Hamilton.
They're going to come here. Obviously, wouldn't you do that if you needed shelter? You're not going to sit outside the one shelter in the neighboring municipality waiting for that bed to come open when you know there's a shelter right next to you they got 10. Let me go see. Maybe there's a spot for me there. So we're taking on that burden. Our taxpayers take on that burden. We use taxpayer dollars to fund these things, and the neighboring municipalities aren't, they're not helping us. They're not sending money our way. And I don't want to become the center of shelter service for our neighboring municipalities. That's not what I want for the city. I want each municipality to take care of their own. That's what I want to see happen. So, if you need more capacity in Burlington and Grimsby and Brantford and all these other places, well, spend some money. Open up more shelters. Provide more services. We're doing it. But we can't continue doing it at this rate. It's not something we're ever going to be able to continue doing. And I think there's also something to be said about the drug use. How are these individuals continuing to get this amount of drugs every day? Who's giving it to them? Like, why are they doing it? You see some of these individuals in the middle of the street and on the sidewalks. You can tell they're on some sort of substance they're using. Where do they get it from? Is it being provided? Why are we putting these individuals in a place where we can get them help with their addiction? Feeding them more drugs is not going to help with the addiction. And we can't expect our police officers to go there and arrest them for being on a sidewalk, folded over because they're on some sort of substance that's making them feel that way. We need to help them. This is not compassion. People want to say, this is compassionate. This isn't compassion. Seeing people on the side of the street in that condition, that's not compassion. I think a model where we can provide a place for them to go, where they're going to get medical attention, they're going to get help with their addiction and try to get them off those addictive substance, a place where they have shelter all the time, they can access proper washrooms and showers, get proper meals. That's what they need. They shouldn't be coming to a place where they're getting a free meal on the side of the street and then across the street they're doing drugs. Doesn't help them. You know what I mean? We're not helping these people. We're helping them continue with their addiction. That's what we're helping them do. So it's a problem that's going to need a lot of work and a lot of help to fix. But I think the way we're doing it now is not going to help, and it's not going to fix it. Nor can we afford to. There's a whole bunch of things that are just not working, and not being able to afford to spend $150 million a year. That's going to be the biggest problem.
Yep, the solution you describe, Mike, that's how Finland solved the homelessness crisis. Put the homeless people in, a shelter or a place to live, put them through the rehabilitation program for them to get back to stability.
Yeah. That's how you help them, right, Daniel? We're not helping them by saying, come to this shelter. Then they go out onto the sidewalk. There's people there selling drugs, which is feeding their addiction. And then, it's rinse and repeat every day. Yeah. We need to get them into a facility, a building, call it whatever you want. I know some people say, well, that, you're institutionalizing people. I think if we're providing a place where people are going to get addiction help, where people are going to get fed, they're going to get medical attention, they're going to have heat, they're going to have air conditioning so they're not dying in the winter, in the freezing cold, and not having heat stroke in the summer, and they're getting 3 meals a day, the ability to live with dignity, showering, clean, that's compassion, Daniel.
That's true.
Having them live the way they are now, that's not compassion. We can help these people. Let's try and get some people not addicted to these things anymore and try to integrate them back into society. But we got to help them before we do that. So,
yep. And then that takes me to the next question, Mike. You said more than once that Hamilton cannot continue to carry provincial level social service costs on the backs of local property taxpayers. What does that mean in practical terms for the next budget cycle, 2027?
Well, I think one of the things I mentioned is we got to start tying funding, and this is not just on the social services side. I think this is in general on how we should be focused on our budgeting moving forward. You got to tie the budget to outcomes. You got to have data where you're spending your money. If we're going to spend our money on social services, sure, it's money well spent. Great. I want to see the outcomes. How many people have you housed? How many people have you been able to move into transitional housing? How many people have you moved into supportive housing? How many people have you helped? We need to see that. So then we can say to our residents, we've spent this kind of money, but here are the results. You need to be able to show that evidence. Right now, we can't provide that evidence. I don't know that the evidence is going to be something we're going to be happy about for the money we're spending. Right? Because again, it's all part and parcel with the money you're spending. You're spending $150 million. What are we getting for it? And I think that's how we got to approach all of our budget. We hired these 1,000 people. What did we get for it? Have we delivered more projects? Did we do more parks? Did we fix more roads? Let's see the data. Well, no, we didn't, Councillor. Well, then we need to start removing people. What do we need these people for? What are they doing? Right? So we need data and evidence showing that the money we've spent is delivering results. And if it's not, then something needs to change. That funding needs to be moved somewhere else, or the process that we're using needs to change. But we can't continually just put money into something, get the same result every year, or not know what the result is, and then continue to fund that, those areas. It's just,
yep.
Again, we're going to end up bankrupt if we keep going on the trajectory we've gone for the last 4 years.
Yep, that's Albert Einstein definition of insanity.
Absolutely.
Doing the same thing and expecting a different result. Now, this next question, Mike, it comes from public information. In late 2025, the Integrity Commissioner found that some of your comments about staff crossed the line. And you issued a public apology. Looking back, What did you learn from that process about how you communicate frustration while still demanding accountability? Because I believe you were absolutely right on your position. But then, being at City Hall or City Council, there's a certain way of how communication happens. But is there anything you learned or anything you'd like to share or clarify on what happened for the viewers who, may not fully know what that news story was? It was your motion on, I believe, one of the motions was ignored and prior resolutions was ignored. And then
Mhm.
you responded. And you were
Yes,
absolutely right in your position.
there's a few different parts to this one. Number one, I think it shows the residents of the city how passionate I am about the job and just how I feel about the residents and what I'm willing to do and how I'm willing to fight for residents. I think could different language be used? Yeah, I don't know that the language I used was that terrible, Daniel. To be honest with you,
It wasn't.
I don't. I think this is, I have a hard time with the new society where everybody gets their feelings hurt really quick. I'll just be honest with you. Like, and if it hurts people's feelings, like, I didn't say anything derogatory towards staff. I didn't tell them. I didn't say that they were, um, you know, bad people. It wasn't a personal attack on staff. I'm a board of director in a city of, you know, 600,000 people. We got a $2.5 billion budget. And as a board of directors, when you move a resolution, your expectation from staff is that they deliver on those resolutions. That's what you get paid for, right? So every 4 years, I get held accountable based on the job I did. People at City Hall, employees who don't get held accountable every 4 years like I do, they need to be held accountable. That's all I was trying to say. When someone moves a motion saying this is what needs to happen, it needs to happen. You have to do it. So, I learned that people, I guess, are may, maybe it was taken out of context and they took it personally, that it was a personal attack on that individual or those individuals. I didn't name anybody. And that's what was frustrating for me. I didn't name an individual and say, hey, Daniel, I'm going to hold you accountable next time you do that. I didn't do that. I didn't name anybody's name. I didn't say, all I was saying is those actions need to have consequences. If we move motions and staff forget to provide what is being asked for, they forget, like the motion, oh, sorry, we forgot you moved a motion. That's a problem. And I think our residents would agree that that's a problem and people need to be held accountable. If that was a motion that was going to provide funding for us to be able to clear snow and we forgot about it, do you think people would be upset if we didn't have people to clear the snow? I think residents would be pretty upset that, oh, what do you mean they forgot? Yeah, no, they forgot. So my point was just for them to understand that they need, it's a serious job we're doing and you got to take it serious. And forgetting a motion that was passed by all of council, it's unacceptable.
Absolutely.
And that was really the point I was making. So hard to say if I learned anything, Daniel. I learned that people are really sensitive. I learned that, maybe at times my emotions get the best of me because I like fighting for my residents and I'm not going to just sit there and take it. But I don't know that I'm going to change. So
I'm okay with that, Mike, because I read it and it was in the business world, it is perfectly acceptable. If you say something, you do it and you are accountable for your actions.
and that's why, and I didn't name anybody on purpose because I wasn't trying to take it out personally on anyone. It was a message to staff that we need to do a better job or else you're going to be held accountable, which is a pretty simple thing. It's the same thing I tell my kids. If I can tell my 6-year-old son that, you'll be held accountable if you don't listen, I think it's fair to say we can tell grown adults that are getting paid to do a job the same thing.
Absolutely. So, Mike, the next question is partially answered. You have been vocal when you feel staff aren't following council direction or delivering on timelines. How do you balance being a strong advocate for taxpayers with maintaining a productive working relationship inside City Hall?
Yeah, I think for me, the most important part is just being honest with staff. And I think I do a good job of that. I think they know when I'm coming to them with a upset resident, or if I'm upset at something, it's not personal. A lot of times I tell them that, like, this isn't a personal issue I have with you as an individual. It's a issue I have with how we're doing things that's affecting residents in a negative way. So, I think the one thing that staff can always count on with me is they're always going to know where I stand, and I'm going to tell them the truth. And I think that's the best way to operate, because that's the best and quickest way to get to a solution. If we start just trying to, go around in circles and make sure we're not hurting anybody's feelings, and, nothing gets done. We just spin our wheels. So I don't know. You'd have to ask staff. About how they feel about me. I think I have a pretty good relationship with staff. I think I'm respectful. But they also know that I'm going to fight for my residents, and if it hurts their feelings every once in a while, we'll get over it. We're adults. We can agree to disagree and move on.
Absolutely. I think all the viewers will agree with you, Mike. You just simply speak the truth. You fight the fight for your residents in Ward 14 and also for the city of Hamilton, because we all want a better Hamilton and not the opposite, which is the outcome we have today.
That's the one thing we can agree on. I think everybody wants a better Hamilton. We're not going to agree on everything, but that's one thing for sure. If we can't agree on that, then someone's got a problem.
Yep. And after almost 4 years, because remaining in the term is 2 months? September, October. Almost 4 years, Mike. Where do you feel you have grown the most as a councillor? And where do you still feel you have work to do?
Oh, wow. Yeah, so I think the first 4 years definitely taught me about balance. You want to just bulldoze ahead. You want to get things done so quickly. You're so caught up in delivering for the residents. You want to show tangible results so that they know that you're doing something. Like, hey, look, the counselor did something for me. I think so. That's the balancing act that comes with, well, I'm not the only counselor at City Hall. Staff have the entire city to worry about, right? So for me, that was probably the biggest learning curve, where, when you're self-employed or you work in the private world and you have your team is only focused on you. So they're always there to answer your emails, answer your calls, and deliver for you. So balance was probably the biggest thing that I needed to sort of to learn and get comfortable with. I'm not that comfortable with it, because I want to get things done and deliver as quickly and as often as possible. I things that I need to continue to work on. I think that's a hard one, Daniel. I got to be honest with you. I think maybe my approach at I don't want to have to apologize anymore. So maybe I'll work on ensuring that whatever language I use at a City Hall doesn't offend anyone. I definitely don't want to have to deal with the integrity commissioner and make public apologies, and I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. But I have a feeling that might be a challenge for me over the next 4 years.
Well, the political world is certainly different. There's politically correct and politically incorrect.
Yes.
In the business world, it is, there is no political correctness. It's raw and, straight.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna try and walk that tightrope for sure.
Now, you also did a recent podcast interview with Conrad Zarini, who unfortunately passed away, right, on compound interests earlier this year. And you talked about what a Mike Spadafora 2.0 would look like. Paint that picture for us now, Mike. What would be different about a second term, Mike Spadafora 2.0?
Yeah, so first off, you're going to get 4 years of that vocal voice at council as opposed to the 2.5 years that you got in the first term. I think you'll probably see a lot of the same around budgeting. Hopefully, maybe not as much because we'll be able to make some changes there for the positive. But I think you'll see I'd probably be more involved, taking more of a leadership role. I like to maybe be more in the front leading instead of being, the rookie, on council that kind of just took his shots when he could in the last 2 years. But I'd like to lead and try to get some people to come along with me to find a better direction for the city. So, and if that might be people that were with me on this term that'll hopefully be back, or new councillors. I would rather be at the front leading them than maybe just kind of doing my own thing. That's how I felt this term. I was more of a lone wolf. There was obviously people that there was some alignment on some of the votes throughout the years, but I think for me, I want to be able to be more of a leader for all of council and see if we can get some more things done for the taxpayer.
Well, from the council meetings that I have watched, Mike, when you were deputy mayor and you wear that nice white blazer, a jacket, you look
That was
very...
my Miami Vice blazer, yes.
Oh, yeah, well, it looked very good, and you
Thank
look
you.
very confident and sharp. And I think from what I've seen, or from what I've known, from the beginning, I think I initially met you maybe 2-3 years ago, probably. But what I see today, you are very much strong on your representation of your residents in Ward 14 and
Thank you.
fighting for what they want. Housing supply, development charges, and red tape are top of mind for a lot of people in Hamilton right now. What specific changes would you push for to make it faster and more predictable to build the housing this city actually needs?
Yeah, I think that's a tough one because again, we're so intertwined with the province. I think the province is gonna do some things over the next little while that'll help our city from a development charges standpoint and provide some well-needed funding for infrastructure. Where we need as a city, what we have control of is our planning process. And I think that needs to be the focus for us as a city. I think we really got to hone in on it. We really got to understand that the longer we keep a process going from a development standpoint, the worse it is for the city. And there's a couple pieces of that. Number one, our OLT success rate.
Yes.
We lose every time we go to OLT. So that, we waste a lot of money at OLT. So I think that's one thing we need to get away from. The other thing we need to get away from is not understanding that every month that goes by that we stall a development is every month longer for us to start collecting tax revenue.
Yes.
So when we hold up a subdivision for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you want to talk about Scooby, which is the Stony Creek urban boundary expansion that was approved, I think, in 2006. There's no houses built there, Daniel.
Wow.
It's been 30 years. So you think of the amount of revenue we've lost as a city just in that area. If we would have been able to get that area building 15 years ago, how much tax money would we have collected for 15 years? And
so
you're
this
talking,
was an approval
talking,
for an expansion, Mike?
No, this is within the urban boundary. This is Stony Creek. It's called Scooby. That is the name, Stony Creek official urban bound. Anyways, it's in the urban boundary now. They've been working on it since 2006. Okay. And I'm not saying this is completely on the city, but I'm sure with the development community, we could have worked on a way to get this done quicker. And even if we started building there in 2015, when we started the process in 2006, from 2015 till now, it'd be 11 years of us collecting tax money on thousands of units That's money that we're never going to get back, Daniel. We're never going to be able to make that money up, right?
Wow.
So that's the consequences of besides frustrating the housing market, besides frustrating the developers who deliver the housing, we're also taking money out of our own pockets. The quicker the unit gets on the market and sells and someone occupies it, that's the minute we start collecting property taxes. And that's what we should be doing. So, the planning process is definitely somewhere where I'm going to hopefully stick my nose in. And it's not so much that I want to get rid of those things that are part of the Planning Act. That legislation needs to be followed. We need to ensure we're getting the best bang for our buck when we're getting a development, but it can't take 3 years, 4 years, or in the case of Stony Creek, 30 years. It's unacceptable for anyone, and any business, private, public, should never happen. We need to get out of our own way so that we can start delivering housing and the type of housing that people want, which, bungalows, semis, 3-story towns, single family home. We can't just say to people, this is the only type of housing we want to build in the city. It's not up to us as governors to dictate what people get to buy. Shouldn't be that way. We need to provide every type of housing, obviously not provide those, but we need to allow developers to provide every type of housing. We can't just say, well, no, we just want intensify. We want 30-story buildings. Not everybody wants to live in a condo, Daniel. Some
That's
people
true.
want a 2-story townhome. Some people want a single family home. Some people want a 2-story. Some people want a single floor home. That's not our job. The market will dictate that. We can't force feed the market whatever we think we want as a council. So I'm definitely going to be sticking my nose into the planning process and finding ways to work with staff to ensure that we are delivering on development as quick as possible. And listen, the developers have a big part to play in that. They need to come. They need to come prepared. They need to have all their studies done. And if they come with complete applications, then for me, I can go to our staff and say, you need to deliver because we need that tax revenue instead of vacant land that's sitting empty and not providing us with anything. We're not getting housing or property tax revenue.
And you're
there's
also
building and development charge revenue as well.
absolutely. And you're also in the planning committee, Mike.
I am not. No.
Would you be in the planning committee in the next term?
My goal right now, if I had to make that decision today, I think I'm gonna join the planning committee because I think that'll be the only way that hopefully I can help drive some change on the process. Again, I'm not looking to say let's not follow legislation. Let's not ensure we're not getting the best for the city. I want to do that. I just want the process and the length of time it's taken us to get to market. It's got to be shorter because it affects us more than anybody as a city.
Absolutely. And Civic Pride keeps coming up in your comments, Mike. What does a prouder, more functional Hamilton looks like to you in 2030, and what role does Ward 14 play in getting there?
Yeah, I think the first thing it looks like is we need to start having residents believe in our city again. And I don't think that is the case right now. I think a lot of the communication and a lot of the interactions I have, people are down on the city, right? They're not in a good place. They don't like the direction we're in. They don't think they're getting their money's worth from their taxes. They don't think things are getting done. So I want to be able to change that conversation. I want to start having the right conversations. I want people to feel proud about the city they live in. It's the only city I've ever lived in, Daniel. I've never lived anywhere else.
Really?
This is it. I've only lived in this city, and I've, out of the 45 years I've been alive, 35 plus years of them were in Ward 14. This is all I know.
So you saw all the waterfalls in Hamilton.
Absolutely. I've walked them, and I've seen the city from every corner, because I got relatives that live in every corner of it. So my goal is never to leave. I don't have plans to move to different parts. I want to make it better. I want people to be happy to be Hamiltonians again. I want them to be proud to say they live in Hamilton. I don't want them to say, "Oh, where are you from?" "I'm just outside of Toronto." We need to start promoting where we live. I want people to feel like they can do that. And I don't know that we can do that right now. I think if we're being honest with ourselves, um, we've taken a step back in the city. So for me, I want to take not just one step to get us back. I want to take multiple steps. I want to drive this city forward. The potential's there. We need to get out of our own way, and we need to make good decisions that allow our city to move forward. A cleaner, safer, prosperous, one that builds not just housing, but builds communities. We want to attract people to come here. TD Coliseum, that is just the start of what we can do with our downtown. But we got to be serious about what we want to do downtown. We can't just say what we want to do downtown. We got to be serious about it, right? And I'm hoping I can be a part of that. I'll definitely be probably one of the louder voices that will try to make that change for sure in the coming term.
Well, Mike, hearing you speak, you definitely inspire me. Right.
We need to inspire our residents. They're part of the solution. It's not the 16 people that wear nice white blazers at City Hall that are gonna move the city forward. We're just a small part of what we need. The residents, we got to get the residents back on board. We got to make the residents feel like there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and we need them to be a part of it.
That is actually a very big one, Mike. It's a very big one. Yep. I've heard residents in the Hamilton Mountain, from what they have seen in the past 4 years, and in their summer barbecues, they talk about leaving Hamilton because that's the point that we have arrived now. So
Yeah,
you have also
put the brakes on that and keep people in the city.
Absolutely. And you have been appointed to the Hamilton Police Services Board. How does that change the way you approach public safety issues, both citywide and in Ward 14?
Yeah, I mean, I got to be honest with you. It's only been a short time, but it's been such an honor and privilege to serve on the police board. I mean, I think everybody in the city knows my feelings on police and how supportive I am of the police. I think when you get on the police board and you have the opportunity to interact with police officers more often, I go to what they call parade in the morning at different police, like Division 1 or Station 1, however you want to call it. When I go to the police stations and I'm able to interact with the frontline officers, the ones that are on the street, they're walking the neighborhood or they're driving through the neighborhood. You get a real sense of what they go through every day, some of the calls that they go to, some of the difficult situations that they're faced with, that they deal with on a daily basis. And, it's hard because, everybody, the last 4 years, people just want to talk about money. So they look at the police service and they look at the budget that policing comes with. And that's where our focus has been. But I think we need to really step back and understand, how important the police are. How unsafe our community would be without them. And listen, our communities, we've had our challenges, obviously youth crime and shootings. We've had our challenges for sure. But how much worse things would be if we didn't have these officers going out every day and putting their lives on the line, not ours. They're putting their life on the line every day to try to keep our community safe from criminals. So, one of my goals, I'd like residents to get to know, their officers more. And part of that is I want to try and get more police officers in our communities doing proactive policing. If there's anywhere where I think we can improve community safety and the sort of the knowledge of our residents towards the police service, I think it starts with proactive policing, having them in the wards, and then getting the residents to get to know the police officers. That's what it used to be like. Obviously, our city's grown, and I don't know that the service has grown with how quickly the city's grown. And you look at even geography, we're not a small city from a geographical standpoint. You look at how far you have to get from, let's say the Winona all the way to, Rockton. You're basically on you're on the edge of Cambridge. When you think of the size of our city, and you think of the fact that, we don't even have a police station. We're just building one now out in the, the Waterdown Flamborough area. It's hard for us to be proactive, and it's going to take investment. And, when people say, well, Mike, our budgets, our taxes are already high. Well, how are you going to invest more money in policing? Well, I think we need to stop investing money in places that don't provide anything for our taxpayers. And I think there's those areas exist. I think we can find savings. I think if you become more efficient, there'll be more money. And I think we can invest more money where people want. I think if people got deliverable outcomes from policing, they'll be okay investing more money. I think police, fire, paramedics, those are places that we can continue investing. And I think our residents would be okay with that as long as we weren't wasting money elsewhere. So I think if we can reduce the wasting, if we can become more efficient on delivering on products, so it's not taking as long, and we can use some of those efficiencies to boost up our emergency services, I don't see residents having a hard time with that. I think they would welcome it. I think they would like it, and I think they would feel safer knowing that we would have more police doing proactive policing in the city.
Wow, very well said, Mike. Your responses, it really opens up my mind on how you view things, and I certainly learned a lot. But very well said, Mike. Now we are approaching the 2-hour mark on this conversation.
Yes.
You didn't believe we would reach our 2 hours, Mike.
It doesn't feel like 2 hours, but yeah, it has been. Yes.
Now there's 3 final big questions, Mike. Your campaign message is still more work to be done, and work hard for you, Ward 14. In your own words, what is the unfinished business that makes you want another 4 years?
So I'll start within Ward 14. Obviously, we talked about the upgrades, but there's still more upgrading to be done. Obviously, there's roads, there's sidewalks, there's parks that still need attention. And so when I say there's still work to be done, that's where that work is going to take place. In my second term, it'll be a continuation on some of the projects we were able to deliver on, and continue fixing the things that our residents are looking for, which, again, roads, sidewalks, and parks. From a citywide standpoint, I think the budget is probably the number one area where there is a lot of work that still needs to be done. I think the budget is an area where we can look at doing it differently. I think we talk about zero-based budgeting. Some people will tell you, oh, you can't do that. I think we got to simplify our budget. I think the only way we can truly understand where the money is going, and what we're getting for that money, is we need to get back to a basic budget. Here's the money we brought in. Here's the money that went out. We've spent X on this. We've spent X on this. When you simplify a budget, truly simplify it. Here's your labor costs. Here's your capital costs. And you have the ability to see if you actually delivered on those. That's where we got to get to. Right now, if you ask a resident to go in, it's hard enough for us to do it as counselors. Get a binder this big that's got 400 pages in it, and you're expected in a 3-month timeline, to sometimes even less, to figure out what all those things are. We need to simplify the budget. We need to understand those big ticket items, capital, operating, what is it, what is our labor costs? And we need to get to a point where we can say, we're missing the mark here. And why is that? And let's change it. And I don't think we can do that right now. Right now we hear, well, we need people, we need more staff. We don't have the capacity. We need, if we had 10 more employees, counselor, things would get better. Well, we've added 1,000. things didn't get better. So now we got to peel it back. And that I don't know how else we're going to be able to clean up the budget without simplifying it and finding the areas where we added resources or money and didn't deliver, and taking that resource and that money away. But you can't continue to spend the money and not deliver. So, and I think that's where you'll find your savings. I think you'll find savings everywhere in the budget. I think you'll find overtaxation happens where we tax for certain things and then they don't happen in that year. And then we continue taxing for them the following year, which means we're just taxing and not delivering. And we can't do that, especially in a time now where affordability is, extremely difficult for people. This is not the time to overtax or to try and build back reserves. We had good reserves, Daniel. We had $300 million in reserves. They're gone.
Wow. All gone,
Right?
or how much?
Pretty close.
Wow.
I think the reserve strategy was close to $250 million over 4 years. I don't know where it went. Definitely didn't go into
Wow.
roads in those areas, right? So the budget is definitely where the majority of work needs to be done, in my opinion, from a citywide lens. There's definitely, we need to change. Just because it worked 15 years ago and that process worked 15 years ago, we need to look at what some of our neighboring municipalities are doing. Some of the other agencies around, how are they budgeting? We can't just continue to say, well, here's how we've done it, so we're going to continue to do it this way, because that's what our staff knows. Get uncomfortable, learn a different way. If it's going to be beneficial for the city, you got to get out of your comfort zone, right? That's just, if you're in your comfort zone, you're probably not getting better. That's just, no different than in sports. We can go back to the sport analogy. Your players will be the best when they're uncomfortable, because then when they get into those situations, they'll be able to deliver. If you keep everybody in a comfortable place all the time, doing what they feel, what they know, not having any sort of nervousness because, oh, I know this, I can do this with my eyes closed, you get complacent and you can't deliver. And I think we need to, from a budget perspective, I think we're complacent, and we need to change things up for sure.
Wow, we have a lot of work to change things around for the next 4 years.
From a budget perspective, absolutely we do.
Yep. And there will be people watching this interview, Mike, who are still undecided, or who probably have never voted before, or may not pay attention to elections before, but they are now this year because they want change. If you had 60 to 90 seconds, or you can take a couple more seconds, to look at them in the eye and tell them why they should trust you with their vote again, what would you say?
Well, I think the message is different from people that have voted before and people that have never voted. I think results speak for themselves. In regards to Ward 14, I think I've delivered on the things I said I was going to deliver on. So if people are looking at, hey, Mike, what was your platform in 2022? You were elected. Did you deliver on those platforms? From a Ward 14 perspective, I think we've done those things. And again, we'll continue to do them, because 4 years was just not enough time to get everything that we wanted to do in Ward 14 done in regards to parks, roads, sidewalks, etc. The other thing is, before you're going to make any decision, before you base your decision on any information you may or may not have, speak to the person that you're looking or that you think you have the information on. I'll talk to anyone. I'll talk to anyone that voted for me, didn't vote for me, has never voted. You want to hear it? Hear it from me. Don't take other people's word for it. Don't listen to what you hear on the media or in the newspaper. You want to know the truth? Come and talk to me. I'll talk to anyone, and I'll agree to disagree. I'm still good with those things. It's something I think the world needs to get back to. Talk to me. Let's have a conversation. Let's agree to disagree if that's where it ends. But for me, for the most of the time that I'm speaking to someone, we can come to an agreement somewhere in the middle. You're not going to agree with everything I say. You're not going to disagree with everything I say. But I think we can always agree to meet somewhere in the middle that's going to benefit the city and the ward. You'll always know where I stand. I tell it the way it is. I have nothing to hide. And I'm willing to engage with any and every resident in the city, as long as they're willing to engage with me. And I think what I've learned over the next 4 years is just going to help me start working day one that I'm reelected. There will be no time wasted. It'll be day one. I'll be working to make things better in the city and in the ward. So yeah, that's come and find me. Come and talk. Let's talk. Let's fix this city together.
Very, very well said, Mike. The first thing that came to my mind is, look forward to more motions from Mike. We're going to make change in the city.
Yeah, there'll be lots of motions coming.
Yep. And final question, Mike. When your kids are old enough to understand what their dad did during these years on council, what do you hope they say about how you showed up for this community?
Yeah, I hope they can say that I did show up and that I tried my absolute best to follow through on the things I said I was going to do. Because that's sort of the message that I give to them. If you say you're going to do something, do it. And that's what I try to live by as a counselor. And listen, we don't succeed on every single thing we do. There's going to be hurdles. There's going to be mistakes. There's going to be times where we thought we were doing the right thing and it wasn't the right thing, but you just got to stay committed to what you're doing. And, for me, that's what I hope they're going to see when they look back on however many years I spend, at City Hall and everything else I do in life. For me, I'm going to say what I do and do what I say. So, hopefully they'll be proud of knowing that their dad tried their best to deliver.
Thank you so much, Mike. This interview has been a pleasure. It's an honor. And I think I certainly learned a lot, Mike, from this interview.
Thanks for having me, Daniel. I say that the 2 hours went by quick, and obviously, you're an easy guy to talk to, and I enjoy the conversation and I enjoy the questions, and it's always easy to talk about the city for me. I enjoy doing it, whether it's on a platform as a city councilor, but I enjoy doing it even just in my backyard, at my friends' house, at families' houses. They want to engage, they want to talk, and I think that's important. And anytime we could talk about how we're going to make the city better, and we can do it as a group, I think that's the only way we're going to move this thing forward. So I thank you for having me on, and look forward to keeping the conversation going.
Thank you very much, Mike, and for being on the Chin podcast. And
Thank
just stay on for a little bit afterwards.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks so much.
There are conversations that stay with you after the microphones are turned off, not because of any single answer, but because of the consistency underneath of them. Mike Spadafora spoke about the neighborhood that formed him, about the 3 children who give the work its meaning, and about a simple standard he tries to live by. If you say you're going to do something, do it. He was clear-eyed about the slow machinery of local government, about the cost of inefficiency, and about the quiet frustration of watching tax dollars fail to produce the results people reasonably expect. What stayed with me most was the absence of performance. Just a man who still lives in the same part of the city that raised him, still measuring his work against the expectations of the people who know him best, including the 3 young ones who will one day look back and decide for themselves whether their father showed up. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Chin Podcast.